Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. Aaliyah Chavez is away. We start in Washington, D.C., where a group of federal lawmakers heard from boarding school survivors last week. New legislation introduced by Sharice Davids will establish a Truth and Healing Commission on federal Indian boarding schools. Davids testified before the House Subcommittee on Indigenous Peoples. This formal body will investigate, document, and acknowledge past injustices of the federal government's Indian boarding school policies. This include attempts to terminate Native cultures, religions, and languages, assimilation practices, and human rights violations. During Representative Davids' testimony, she shared how much of this part of America's dark past has impacted Native America.
I would not be here today were it not for the resilience of my ancestors and those who came before me. The policies and assimilation practices of the United States had the sole purpose of culturally assimilating American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian children in residential boarding schools across the country.
The commission will also develop recommendations for Congress to aid in the healing of Native communities, historical and intergenerational trauma. A new report released by the U.S. Congress last week explores persistent structural barriers in Indigenous communities. The Joint Economic Committee released the report. It includes members of the U.S. Senate and House. The report examines how economic opportunities are limited for Native Americans. Randall Aki is one of the authors of the report.
I think this report, what it does is it puts a lot of the socioeconomic conditions of Native Americans, Alaska Natives, American Indians in perspective, and it really does a great job of summarizing a number of different outcomes, a number of different domains, and puts it into a language that's digestible and understandable for a broad swath of the population, so that it's not caught up in jargon.
The report details barriers in health, education, getting jobs, and other disparities in the labor market. And it also found that Native American households and businesses struggle to assess credit and financing on equal terms. This hinders the growth of these enterprises as well as the creation of household wealth. Representative Sharice Davids stated the report is helping expose areas of Indigenous self-determination that needed added definition. Voters from North Carolina will head to the polls on Tuesday for primary election day. There are 2 Indigenous candidates on the ballot hoping to make history. ICT's Pauly Denetclaw reports.
I'm Crystal Cavalier, and I'm running for Congress.
Crystal Cavalier was born and raised in North Carolina. She's a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi and says she has always fought for the civil rights of her community. At just 15, Cavalier sued the Alamance County School District for not letting her join the National Honor Society. She won that case.
And that's what we really need, is for people to stand up for civil rights.
This experience is part of the reason she is running for Congress. The longtime environmental advocate is running as a Democrat to represent the state's 4th congressional district. This area includes the city of Durham and Chapel Hill. Cavalier is running against 7 others for the party's nomination.
One of the things I've been doing is fighting a pipeline that has been trying to come through our backyard. So the Mountain Valley Pipeline, Southgate Extension, is coming through North Carolina. And it is going through a Black and Indigenous community. So my community, it's about 6 miles from where we live.
Cavalier isn't the only Indigenous person running for Congress in the Tar Heel state. Charles Graham is the only Indigenous representative in the state's legislature. He is running for Congress as a Democrat too, but in another district, in District 7.
I'm a candidate I think would be the right person at the right time, in the right district.
Graham was an educator for 3 decades. He told ICT his goal was to make sure students get the education they deserve.
Education is mighty important.
The Lumbee tribe of North Carolina is the largest tribal nation east of the Mississippi. Their citizens live across 4 counties, including Robeson, Cumberland, Hokie, and Scotland. All of them are located in the southern part of the state. Congressional District 7 has Cumberland and Robeson County, meaning a Lumbee citizen could be representing Lumbee communities in Congress. Already, Graham has represented his tribal community in state politics for over a decade.
I think I would be ready on day one. I have the experience working in a legislative body.
In Gallup, New Mexico,
Pauly Denetclaw for ICT News.
The candidates who win the primary election will move forward to the general election in November.